How's it going, everyone? This is Dixon of the Ultimate Gamer. I'm logging on. Really, this review is going to be audio and still images only. So there's not going to be any gameplay footage, so I apologize about that. It's going to be on Mafia, the old country. And I have my reasons for not having any gameplay footage recorded. I'll explain to that as the end comes. I want to get this one off my chest as soon as possible. Mafia, the Old Country, which is a prequel to the other three Mafia games. And I recently gotten the Mafia Old Country game when it was on sale for $35. And I actually wanted to play this game ever since I saw the preview, but I decided to wait when I have the extra time and wait for it to go on sale. Which 8 months passed since the game released. Now, 8 months passed since the game released, I decided to get on sale. But why did I decide to get on sale now? Well, as much as I've always been interested in the Mafia culture, as well as the Mafia game series itself since day one, or almost day one, I just got back from my fifth Vegas trip, and my second time being at the Mob Museum. Got a lot of stuff from there, and I'm actually curious about the Old Country game. And I was pretty anxious to play that game since, because I was more curious of how the landscape in the Old Country, which is Sicily, worked back then, with the settings of 1900s from 1904 to 1907. The Mafia, or which is where the Mafia, La Cosa Nostra, or Murda begin, before they started organizing in America and other countries. You know, Mafia the Old Country was definitely more original when it comes to other Mafia games, because I never actually played in the Old Country before. I was usually playing in during the early 20th century. Well, still playing in the earlier 20th century, just haven't played in the Old Country before, like Sicily. It always makes me feel like I'm actually playing a prequel to The Godfather. And the game lives up to its hype. You know, you have the cars that were invented around that time, where you actually had to use the crank from the front to start the car up. And you can also ride horses in that game. But riding horses in that game is not as good as riding horses in Red Dead Redemption, I'll tell you that. However, the game is set around the same time as Red Dead Redemption games. And it kind of feels like you're playing Red Dead Redemption almost in Sicily. But of course, it's not outlaws or anything, it's the mafioso. The gameplay, the landscapes are beautiful. They have familiar weapons that are kind of like from Red Dead almost, kind of similar for the time. In that game, there's definitely plenty of switchblade types to use, because switchblade fighting was a popular thing in Sicily, especially during that time. I'm not sure how it is today in Sicily, but back then it was. And come to think of it, when it comes to classic films and stuff, you can also have Italian audio with English subtitles to make it look like you're actually watching an Italian film with English subtitles, like a film that was made in Italy, which kind of makes sense because the game is set in Sicily. And there's even there's also a cinematic filter option that makes you feel like which you can select, which makes you feel like you're actually watching an old movie. It kind of makes me feel like almost like LA Noir, almost kind of in that regards with that filter. As well as Red Dead Redemption 2, they have the filter option there as well. And there's even there's even camera modes where you can take photos of some scenes, as well as collectibles like posters or newspaper articles or diaries and notes and stuff. as well as upgrade charms for like your necklace, where you can do certain things. And what's cool with the camera mode is you can actually have any type of filters you want with it, and that's really creative there. I always like to try to pay homage to old films by doing stuff like that during that time setting. Like the other Mafia games, it still have the free ride mode where you can like travel around, especially you can travel around in Sicily, but you don't really do much or drive any car but you can drive any car you have or horse you have or do race missions on horses or cars. And there will be that sort of thing in the story mode. Now the story itself was decent for the most part. Now I was almost this close about saying they had almost everything to make it the best Mafia game in the series. But sadly, they had to fuck it up with one thing to make it the least likable one of the series, and to prevent me from going near the game unless if it gets fixed. The ending. It's sad and depressing, and it didn't really make any sense either. Well, I'll get to that in just a moment. Yes, I'm aware that most Mafia stories don't have happy endings, though there are quite a few of them do. And I'm also aware that the mafioso in Sicily is much worse than the mafia in America. And no, it's not fiction, it's reality. And yes, I've seen similar things in the Godfather movies. But in the Godfather movies, at least it made more sense. And yes, Sicily may look like a beautiful country, especially if it's a country I've never been to before. I mean, especially when it comes to video games. It may look beautiful, but it's definitely uglier than it looks when it comes to the Mafia. Anywhere close to the Mafia. And sure, some Mafia members are fair with labor workers and all that. In worst case scenarios, there's definitely worse ones out there that actually treat you like you're a fucking slave. And there are video games out there that do have sad endings that I can butt up with, of course, and some of them actually do make sense to the point where it's actually turns out to be a great part of the great storyline, like with Red Dead Redemption 2. Arthur Morgan had tuberculosis and he was trying to do more good before his end. And L.A. Noire also had a sad and questionable ending, but at least that one makes a little bit more sense. I was hoping they have a follow-up to that game. Probably never will happen. And speaking of sad endings with Mafia, the first Mafia game had a sad ending with the main protagonist, Tommy Angelo. But now let's get back to the topic of the Mafia, the old country, with the protagonist in that one. The protagonist for the Mafia old country, Enzo Ferrara. No, he definitely had a sad beginning, where he was, and definitely a sad ending. Part of good. I don't think I want to talk about it though. I'm following the end of it. Do your research on him and find out for yourself if you dare. It's getting a little emotional here. I'll tell you one thing. The ending of this game was what killed it for me the worst. I just can't go back in this game after that. Unless if they add a proper conclusion to fix that ending where he's actually still alive and... Anyway, unless they do something to make the ending right, I'm not touching the game again. I don't care what else it has to offer for future DLC if it's like in between the years and all that, which is coming up from Man of Honor. I don't give a shit. I'm done touching this game. I wish I hadn't touched it due to that ending. I know I'm going sarcastic here because of it, though, because it really is a depressing ending. and I just can't take it. And it's hard for me to explain. It's right up there with that game Stray, where he played as a cat, and he had all his kitty friends with him, and he got lost into a different world, and then he made it back to the platform where he started, but just to see him all alone, and that kind of tear me up. Just that if you want to check out why I despise the ending, it's definitely full of sadness. It didn't make any, and with the ending, it didn't make any sense to the point where I didn't want to return. And the character itself. Do your research on it at your own risk, or check out video clips at your own risk. This is one part that makes me don't want to go back to the game again, unless they do something right. Anyway, I'm sorry about my emotions here. Thank you all very much for watching and listening. This is Dixon of the Ultimate Game Room logging off.